Let me ask you something, and answer it honestly, in the quiet of your own chest. Who are you still performing for? Because you are performing for somebody. Nearly everyone is, to their last day, and almost nobody knows it. Maybe it is your grown children, and every choice you make passes first through the question of what they will think, whether they will finally see you as capable, as modern, as still sharp. Maybe it is your siblings and the 60-year contest that nobody ever declared but everybody has been running, whose life turned out right, whose children did better, who the parents would have been proudest of. Maybe it is a parent, and hear me now. Maybe it is a parent who has been gone for 20 years, and you are still, this very week, making choices designed to win the approval of a person who is no longer here to give it. Maybe it is the neighbors, the church, the old classmates, the ones who doubted you in 1965, the voice of a teacher, a first husband, a father-in-law, somebody whose verdict got inside you half a century ago and set up a courtroom, and you have been appearing before that court, presenting evidence, proving yourself every day since. Tonight I am going to tell you why it is time to stop, not slow down. Stop, completely, deliberately, forever. Because I stopped, some years ago now, and I can report from the other side, and what is on the other side is the closest thing to freedom I have found in 70 years of looking. My people had a name for what an elder becomes when the proving ends, and it is a beautiful name, and I will give it to you at the end of tonight. But first I have to show you what the proving actually is, what it costs, and why every verdict you have been chasing was never going to arrive. Stay with me. This one, if you truly hear it, changes the rest of your life. Here is the first thing to understand about proving yourself, and it is the thing that took me longest. The court never adjourns. You believed, your whole life you believed, that the proving had a finish line. If I just succeed at this, they will finally see. If the children turn out well, if the house is paid, if I handle this crisis with grace, if I show them one more time, then the verdict will come down. Approved. Enough. Case closed. And I can rest. So you worked. You presented your evidence year after year, exhibit after exhibit, the achievements, the sacrifices, the competence, the good behavior. And I want you to look back across 60 years now and answer honestly. Did the verdict ever come? Even once? Was there ever a day when the judge, whoever your judge is, banged the gavel and said, "Enough, you have proven it, you are free to go"? There was not. There never is. Because here is the terrible mechanics of it, the thing nobody tells the young. Proving yourself does not close the case. It funds the court. Every piece of evidence you submit teaches the court that you accept its authority, that its verdict matters, that you will keep appearing, and a court that knows you will keep appearing has no reason, none, ever, to release you. The people you perform for learn that your worth is negotiable, and they, often without malice, simply keep negotiating. The parent whose approval you chased did not withhold it because your evidence was weak. They withheld it because withholding was the leash, and some knew it and some never did, but the effect was the same. 50 years of appearing before a court that was never once planning to acquit you. My grandfather said it in one sentence the night I finally understood my own courtroom. He said, "Grandson, you cannot win a game whose whole purpose is to keep you playing. The only move is to stand up from the table." And I will tell you about my own courtroom because I promised you at the start that I stopped, and you deserve to know what I stopped. My judge was my father's brother. A hard, successful, sharp-tongued man. And when I was young, he said a thing about me, in front of people. A dismissing thing, the kind of sentence that takes a man 10 seconds to say and another man 50 years to answer. And I spent decades answering it. I did not know that is what I was doing. That is the devil of it. I thought I was simply living, working, building. But looking back with honest eyes, I can trace how much of my road was laid out as a reply to that one sentence. Choices made because they would refute him. Achievements collected like exhibits with his name on the file. And here's the part I need you to hear. The part that finally opened my hand. The man died. And at his funeral, standing with the family, a cousin of mine, his own son, said to me quietly, "You know, he always spoke well of you in his last years. Said you had turned out solid." And I stood there waiting to feel the thing I had worked 50 years to feel, the verdict delivered at last, the case closed, the acquittal in hand, and I felt nothing. Hear me, nothing. A little wind on a grave, because the hunger had never actually been for his words. The words were nothing. 10 seconds of sound from a difficult man. The hunger was a boy's hunger. From a moment long dissolved, and no verdict arriving in my 60s could feed a boy in his teens. That is the cruelest arithmetic of the proving life, my friend. The verdict, even when it finally comes, arrives at the wrong address, decades late, made out to someone you no longer are. And on the walk home from that funeral, I stood up from the table, not because I won, because I finally saw there had never been a game. Whoever sits on your bench tonight, living or gone, hear an old man who buried his judge and felt the wind on the grave. The verdict you are working for will feed you exactly that much. Stand up now, while standing is still a choice and not a regret. Before I share the next teaching, I need to tell you something. I'm not going to be here forever, and most of what I know was never written anywhere. So I sat down and I wrote it, all of it. 20 teachings, 4 parts, in the order they were meant to be received. The ones about standing up from the table, the ones about the name my people gave to the elder who is done proving, the ones I have never said on camera. It is called the Native Way, and it costs less than one dinner you will not remember. Scan the code on your screen or look in the comments, but do not leave yet, because next I am going to show you what the proving has been costing you, the real bill, and when you see the total, standing up from the table stops being difficult and starts being urgent. So let us look at the bill, because the proving was never free, and you have been paying it in 3 currencies. The first currency is your choices. Count, if you dare, the choices of your one life that were made for the audience. The career kept too long because leaving would have looked like failure. The house, the car, the purchases made not for your comfort, but for the verdict. The help you did not ask for because needing help would have damaged the case. The things you did not try, hear this one, the things you never attempted, the painting, the trip, the late change of life, because you might fail at them in public, and the case could not afford a failure. A person who is proving cannot explore. Exploring risks evidence against them, so the proving life gets narrower and safer and more presentable every decade, a long museum of acceptable exhibits, and somewhere in the storage rooms of that museum unshown is everything you actually wanted. The second currency is your relationships, because you cannot love someone while performing for them, not fully. Performance requires managing what they see, and love requires being seen, and every relationship you have been proving inside has a pane of glass down the middle of it. The child you needed to impress got your highlights, never your fears, and then you wondered quietly why the closeness thinned. The siblings locked in the old contest could never become what siblings are actually for, fellow survivors of the same childhood, the only other people on earth who remember the kitchen, because rivals cannot compare notes. The proving kept you presented to the very people you most needed to be known by. And the third currency, the dearest one, is your own company. A person who lives before a court is never alone, even alone. The judge comes home with you. You rehearse for it in the shower, present to it at midnight, replay the day's testimony in the dark. Was that impressive enough? Did that sound foolish? What will they think? 60 years without 1 hour of unwitnessed existence. That is the true cost, my friend. Not effort. Existence. You have not been living your life. You have been submitting it. Now hear the truth that dissolves the whole courtroom, the one the old people knew so deeply they built it into everything. Your worth was never on trial. It could not be. Hear why in the old understanding. My people taught that worth is not earned into a person. It is breathed into them at the beginning by the Creator, the way fire is put into wood. It is your nature, not your report card. A cedar does not prove itself to the forest. It does not submit evidence of being cedar. It stands there being cedar with its whole trunk, and whether the birch approves has never once been consulted by anyone, least of all the cedar. Every child of my people was raised knowing they carried original worth by existence, worth that no failure could revoke, and, mark this, no achievement could increase. And do you see what that second half means? It is the half the modern world cannot hear. If achievement cannot increase your worth, then the entire proving project was impossible from the first day. You were hauling evidence to establish something that was never in question, filing exhibit after exhibit, in a case that had already been decided in your favor before you could walk. The court was a fiction. The judge, whoever wore the robe in your mind, the parent, the sibling, the town, was a person with no jurisdiction. Hear that, no jurisdiction. Another made creature just like you, dragging their own evidence to their own imaginary court, too busy with their case to truly judge yours. Nobody was holding court. There was only a world full of frightened people performing for each other, each one certain the others were the judges. And if you doubt that, run tonight's cruelest and kindest experiment. Think of someone who has been performing for you. Because someone has. A child still angling for your approval at 50. A friend still mentioning their accomplishments a little too often. A sibling still keeping score. You have watched them do it, and tell me honestly, from the judge's bench they imagine you occupy, what have you actually been thinking all these years? Have you been weighing their evidence, tallying their failures, withholding a verdict? You have not. You have been loving them, or worrying about your own case, or simply living, and their whole courtroom, the one that governs their choices and steals their sleep, exists nowhere but inside them. Now turn it around. That is exactly what sits behind the eyes of your judges. Nothing. The bench you have been performing for is as empty as the one they imagine you sit on. It is empty benches all the way down, my friend. A whole world of people bowing to furniture. Be among the first in your family to simply stop bowing. My grandmother stood outside all of it. Her whole life she stood outside it. And I asked her once how, and she gave me the sentence that I want, carved somewhere on this earth when I am gone. She said, "Grandson, I have never needed to prove I am enough. For the same reason the mountain has never needed to prove it is tall. The mountain is not tall because we agree it is. It is tall because that is what it is. Go and be what you are. The court will starve without your attendance. Let it." So how do you actually stop at this age, after this many years of appearing? I will give you the practice, and it is small, and it is daily, and it is enough. First, name your court. Tonight, on paper, if you are willing, who sits on the bench, whose voice reads the verdicts in your head. Be precise. Name the names, living and dead, because a court you have named loses half its power. It becomes visible, and no one keeps bowing to a thing once they have seen it is furniture. Second, catch yourself mid-testimony. This week you will feel it, the surge to explain yourself when no one asked, to justify the purchase, defend the choice, mention the accomplishment, polish the story of your day for an audience in your head. Feel it rise and practice the old restraint, close the mouth, let the silence stand, and say inward, I am not on trial. Watch what happens in your body when you do not submit the evidence. Something unclenches. That unclenching is the beginning. Third, do one thing this month badly, in the open, on purpose. Hear me. This is real medicine. This is how you prove to yourself the court has no power. Take the class you would be a beginner in. Paint the terrible painting and show someone. Dance at the wedding like the fool you were never allowed to be. Let there be witnesses, and let the case collapse in public, and discover the great secret at the bottom of everything, that nothing happens. No gavel falls. The sky holds. The people who love you exactly the same, and the ones who judge, if any truly do, reveal only that they are still chained to their own bench, and you will feel for them, for the first time, instead of fearing them. And fourth, when the old voice asks, as it will, in the dark, in its dying whisper, "But what will they think?" Answer it with the elder's answer, gently, finally. They are not thinking of me. They never were. Everyone is in their own courtroom. I have stood up from mine. And because the third practice, the doing badly, frightens people most, let me show you what it looks like done. Because I watched a woman perform it at 74, and it was one of the bravest things I ever saw. She had been, her whole life, the competent one. Everything she touched, done properly or not attempted, that was her law, and it had kept her case spotless and her life small. And after a teaching much like this one, she joined, of all things on this earth, the church choir. And this woman could not sing. Hear me, I am being kind when I say she could not sing. And she knew it, and she joined anyway, and stood in the second row every Sunday, audibly, unmistakably, gloriously off-key, in front of the entire congregation of people whose opinions had governed 40 years of her choices. And I asked her, some months in, how it felt, expecting her to speak of embarrassment survived. And she laughed, and she said, "You don't understand. The first Sunday I was terrified. The second Sunday I noticed nobody had said anything. The third Sunday I realized they could hear me, and they loved me anyway. And the choir director winked at me on the high note I missed. And by the fourth Sunday, she said, I understood that I had spent 40 years paying protection money to a court that never existed, and every wrong note I sing now is a payment I am not making." She sang in that choir until the end of her life, badly, freely, and the congregation, I am told, loved no voice in it more. That is the medicine, my friend. One terrible painting, one clumsy dance, one wrong note, sung in the open and held. The case does not survive contact with the evidence against it. Nothing happens, and the nothing that happens is the door. And now the name, as I promised. In the old way, there was a word of honor for the elder who had crossed this line, and translated into this language it means, roughly, the one who has nothing to defend. It was not an insult. It was among the highest things ever said of a person. The one who has nothing to defend. Sit with the size of that. Such an elder could hear any criticism and weigh it calmly for truth, because none of it threatened them. Could admit any mistake instantly, could laugh at themselves first and loudest, could sit with the young without competing, and with the old without comparing, could be wrong in the morning and corrected by noon without 1 hour of shame, because nothing was on trial. And the people, hear this, the people trusted such elders above all others, sought them first, believed them most, precisely because a person with nothing to defend has no reason to bend the truth. All the authority you were trying to win through 60 years of evidence, my friend, was waiting on the far side of the day you stopped submitting any. That is the trade the Creator held out to you all along. Stop proving and become believable. Stop performing and become known. Stop appearing before the court and become at last the one thing no verdict can touch, which is exactly and only and gloriously what you are. The mountain does not argue its height. Go and be what you are. Court is dismissed. It was dismissed in truth before you were born, and tonight, at whatever age you are finally allowed to hear it. If what you heard today stayed with you, the book is there. The Native Way. 20 teachings, 100 pages, written the way I would speak to you if we were sitting together. Scan the QR code on the screen with your phone or find the link in the comments. Read one chapter. Sit with it. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, who has been sitting on your bench all these years, and are you ready to stand up from the table? I read every comment. And if this is the kind of conversation you have been looking for, subscribe to this channel. We are not collecting viewers here. We are collecting people who remember. Come back next week. I am not done teaching yet.